There was one girl that I met in a Save the Children education programme. This girl, she's 9 years old. She asked her dad during the war, "Promise me I won't die." This girl got injured from a shrapnel wound that has completely damaged a part of her skull. Now, the skin and that area of her head has been completely destroyed. No hair grows out of that area, and the only thing that's protecting the soft tissue around her brain is a bandage. And this girl survived. This girl walks, she talks, she's accessing our education programme, and she's so attached to her dad because she thinks he kept his promise. She didn't die. This girl dreams of becoming a teacher, and when I asked her, "Why do you want to become a teacher?" she said, "I want to teach everyone how to rebuild Gaza."